Well, Laura, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. And, we are new friends. We have never met before. So I was reading on your website things that you were into. Early mornings. You like to wake up with the sun. I like to
That's
kind of
right.
stay under my covers. Iowa, because God gave you more stars apparently than anyone else.
That's what it
And you've
feels
got
like.
your little golden doodle. Nokomis. I've got a big golden doodle, Winston. So I think they would
Oh,
be friends. Our
fun.
Winston sleeps all day long. So
So does
and then
mine. Yes,
that's they're like the best dog. And then
they
you say
are.
your family, you love them so much that you could cry. So, tell us about your family, like how old your kids are. And then I just want to start our journey with like how Eden got her diagnosis and what she was diagnosed with.
Of course. So, yeah, my family, I have my husband, Mike. He's an engineer here locally.
Yeah.
And I have three kiddos. They are 9, 7, and 5. And my youngest, that 5-year-old, her name is Eden. And she was diagnosed with a genetic disease when she was about 2 months old.
Oh.
And we didn't know throughout the whole pregnancy, but towards the end, we started noticing some differences and had some indications, but there was also like, hey, maybe this could be resolved. But over time, we discovered that she has a genetic disease, which is incredibly rare. She's actually the only person that we know on this planet that has what
Oh,
she has.
my goodness.
Um, yeah, so she is kind of under this category called rare chromo, where they put whole groups of people who are kind of in this category together.
Yeah.
And it's difficult a bit because there's not any roadmap or there's no one out there that you can say, hey, how did it look at 5 years old? How did it look at 10
Right.
years old for you? So we've really just been in a process of discovering her abilities. At the time, the doctors were looking at similar children and adults that had been recorded, and they had said to us that she would more than likely never walk or talk. And that was obviously very difficult as a mom and in the first few days of postpartum and all of that stuff. And so um, those were hard things, but it has been incredible just to see how the Lord, He didn't have to, but He was kind to just allow her to. Now she's at 5 years old and she is walking.
Wow.
She is starting to talk, and it is really fun just to hear her thoughts and her dreams and excitement.
Oh,
So,
what have some of her first words been?
oh my goodness. I think her first word was Nokomis, our dog, but she called him like Comis or Comb and,
Oh,
all different versions of his name. But
yeah.
he is not a therapy dog, but oh my
Mhm.
goodness, I would pay for him 10 times over because
Yeah.
he is like a therapy dog for our family, where
Yes.
he is just gentle and kind to her. And they are besties, which is really,
Oh,
really fun. So,
that is so sweet. Well, you've
yeah.
written this new book. Tell us about your book and kind of the why behind why you thought this was the right time to do it.
Of course, yeah. So I wrote, like me, a story about disability and discovering God's image in every person. And it's a children's picture book that I am just thrilled to have out there. When my daughter was diagnosed, and as we've just grown in our journey of what it's like to be a family that has disabilities within it, I started to just realize that many other children, while they were excited to be friends with her, didn't always understand why someone with disabilities who has a mind who perhaps thinks differently or a body that moves differently.
Yeah.
They were asking just really innocent, curious questions. Why is that? Will it ever stop? Will that go away? Will she get better? Even maybe thinking that it was a type of a sickness. And so I just realized that a lot of kids have so many questions. And I think for us as parents, at least I remember very easily I can go back to prior to disabilities being as close as it is in my life. And I can remember as a parent having a lot of questions and being like, I don't really know how to teach on that topic. I don't know
Yeah.
what to say. I don't want to be offensive. How do you explain this?
Yeah.
So lots of questions as parents. So I really wanted to create a tool that nece- didn't necessarily go into all the deep theology of it. While that's
Mhm.
important and a piece of it, I wanted to just create a tool that really helped the child say, oh, I can be friends with someone with disabilities. And just because someone acts differently or thinks differently doesn't mean that, we can't be friends or we can't have a relationship. And so I wanted to show children what that looked like. And it's really just a day in our life. It is very true to the Wifler life. What this book is in here, it
Yeah.
looks very much like our life. And I hope it removes some of the mystery of what it's like to have a
Yes.
family who has a child with a disability in it.
Wow. I'm sure one of the questions that kids ask, that adults ask is like, "Why did God do this?" We have
Mhm.
a junior high club, like a Christian club that meets at lunch, and we had them write questions, and one of the questions would be like, "Why did God make me this way?" And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people have that question of why did God make disabilities? What have you found, in terms of answering? And I'm sure I know I've listened to prior podcasts where your kids have asked
Mhm.
you,
Yeah.
why does Eden have this? Kind of help us grapple through what you've learned so far.
Of course. Yeah. Well, it's a complex question. It's not an easy question, of course, for anybody to answer. Or even, I would encourage any parent to just remember that this is something that's built over the course of many years. And it's not
Yeah.
necessarily something that someone comes to an understanding of with just one question, because with just one conversation,
Yeah.
because it is a tough and complex topic. But I think there are about four main truths that are just encouraging, if you are trying to help your child understand this. And again, these may be taught separately, and hopefully they are taught because they apply to many different areas of life. But the
Yeah.
first is just that we're all made in the image of God. And so just understanding that God intentionally designed each of us. He gave each of us giftings, talents, and abilities that we are to steward for His glory. And we all carry a stamp of God on us. And so there's just that element that, He decided that you would be good at basketball. He decided that you would be incredible at piano. And so we already have differences that display the different facets of God. So just understanding that is a foundational truth. Again,
Yeah.
not just for disabilities, but for operating
All
well
sorts of
in the
things.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think to just explain disabilities, it's the reality is that we live east of Eden and we are on this side of the Garden of the Fall. And so our bodies are broken and they do not work the way that they should. And it is a really hard reality. But I think that we can say that, well, that God allows disability, and we can point to John 9 to say, He said about
Mhm.
the blind man, He
Yeah.
said, I'm doing this so that the works of God might be displayed. And so we don't know why exactly.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't know why I have wrist pain and a degenerative condition in my wrist. Just like, I don't necessarily know why my husband struggles with the things that he struggles with. We all have health issues. We all have
Yeah.
different ways that our body just doesn't function. And yet we know that God allows those things in our life so that His glory might be displayed. And so we can help our children see that while their friend's mind might work differently or their body might move in different ways, that doesn't mean that there is something necessarily, um, it's hard to explain, but
Yeah.
not wrong.
Yeah.
But there is a wrongness, right? There
Right.
is a wrongness there, but that's in all of us because sin has entered the world and we have the curse.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and then from that sin, and I've heard you talk about this before, about how God is sovereign, maybe pick up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, He is sovereign over our bodies, and He does do all of these things just at the end of the day for our good and His glory. And we know that we have the final days to look forward to. Christ has came, He died on the cross, He rose again in 3 days for our sins, and in that He redeemed us. And now we can look forward to the day when He will return for us and our bodies will be whole, and
Yeah.
he will create the new heavens and the new earth here, and we will live with Him forever with whole bodies and fully healed. And that's a day that, as a mother to a child with disabilities, I take such comfort
Yeah.
in knowing that there is an end to the grief, there
Mhm.
is an end to the pain, not just with disability specific, but for all of us. And
Mhm.
that is true good news.
Yeah, yeah, and then that lands on the goodness of God, like that belief that, okay, God is good and this will work for good, and it's for
Yeah.
those called according to His purpose. But I know that
Mhm.
sounds right, like, "Okay, let's believe that," but when you're in it, but you can really speak with authority, I think, because you are in it and you have been in
Mhm.
it, and you're still able to say, "My daughter doesn't get to do the other things that the other five-year-old daughters get to do, but
Mhm.
God is still good." How do you kinda talk to
Yes.
yourself when at some moments you're kinda like, "Okay, I know that in my head, but I'm not really feeling that today?"
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I think that often for me, with any trial or suffering, um, I know that those are the things that God uses to strengthen and sandpaper my soul to be more like His. And I know that that's far easier said than done, because when we're going through grief, it is very painful to have our souls expand and to understand compassion more deeply, kindness more deeply. But we don't get there. We don't get those good qualities, those good virtues, those biblical
Mhm.
truths without going through the fire. And I
Yeah.
think we all want to be compassionate people. We all want to be kind people, but you don't get there through an easy, unsuffering existence. The way that God has chosen to mold us and change us is truly through, He uses many different facets, but one of
Yes.
those is grief and suffering.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, when I remember that, Lord, I want to spend every ounce of what I
Mhm.
have here on this earth for you. I want to give you every single thing that I got. I want to spend it all. And I just remember that he is in control, he is in charge, that nothing can hurt me, that can destroy my body because Christ has already redeemed it and I know that it's secure. Then I'm willing to do whatever he asks and to say,
Yeah.
"Yes, Lord, I receive what you have for me." And I'm I think that that's really difficult to get to that place, but to have a submissive heart and spirit that says, "I receive
Yeah.
whatever the circumstance is, because I know that ultimately you are doing something far greater than I can even understand, but I trust you."